Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Hello and welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast. I am Dr. Supatra Tovar, and I am so excited to have author, psychotherapist, researcher, and women's empowerment coach, Coloma Muro, with us today. Coloma, welcome.
Thank you, Supatra. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to interview Coloma. She has such an interesting background. So let's get right into it. I'm going to read a little bit about Coloma, and then we're going to start our questions. Coloma Muro is a psychotherapist, researcher, and women's empowerment coach with over 12 years of experience. She holds a degree in psychology from the Autonomous University of Barcelona and a double master's in research in neuroscience and primatology. Her holistic approach integrates psychology, neuroscience, mindfulness, and spirituality to promote sustainable inner healing. Coloma emphasizes brain health and neuroplasticity, guiding clients to rewire mental patterns for emotional regulation and personal fulfillment. She is the author of Raw and Unmasked, a book offering strategies to reprogram the nervous system, reconnect with the body, and adopt new narratives to access abundance, joy, and personal freedom. Through her work, Coloma introduces the concept of intimacy within as essential for nurturing fulfilling connections with oneself and others. She was recently recognized as one of the top 20 inspiring women by New York Weekly magazine. Coloma, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for this amazing introduction.
Well, you're an amazing woman, and you really caught my eye, and I find you to be inspirational. So help our audience be inspired by you. What led you to pursue your academic studies? They are vast, they are varied. And how do you combine your background in neuroscience with mindfulness practices in your coaching methods?
Well, I was always fascinated by nature as a child, from animals to astronomy. And I was inclined to study general medicine to understand how the human body worked. But my interest in the brain and how humans make decisions pulled me towards psychology. And I was very passionate about the biology of the brain and understanding the physiology behind our behaviors. And at some point during my studies, I started learning about mindfulness, and that led me to study or to pursue neuroscience. And the more I learned about consciousness, the more intrigued I became. And my brain, though, was too immature to integrate everything I was studying, though. And part of what I learned through my own experience, actually, is that we need to have the capacity to receive that information. And back then, I was too busy. I had never stopped. I was this high achiever. My curiosity was moving faster than my cognition or than the capacity that I had to integrate the information that I was studying. In any case, I did work in amazing places, from hospitals to research centers to rehab centers. And those were deeply gratifying. But I still had a surge, or like a desire to expand my knowledge in ways that the way I was living I was not finding, if that makes sense. And to the point that I felt called to relocate to Bali. So to learn Eastern medicine and philosophy. And I am still to this day blessed by all the support that I received by my parents, my friends, my coworkers. But I did leave everything I had, my apartment, my dog, the life I had in Barcelona, which is originally my hometown. And I embarked on a one-way ticket uh, to Southeast Asia. And there I studied yoga and I learned a lot of different things. But coming back to your question, the lesson for me from all my studies was to slow down. And I got this lesson from an accident that I had in Bali. I got my foot injured and I was told that I would never be able to walk again. And obviously, forget about yoga or any physical activities at all. But I'm bringing this up because that was part of my teaching. The universe gave me the opportunity to stay in bed for 3 months in a foreign country where nobody would speak English. And this is where, after years of studying mindfulness, I got to understand what that practice actually truly meant. Um, and I had the space to integrate what the information that I had been receiving prior to my travel.
Mm.
The message of the accident was to slow down, which is a part of like what mindful living is. And I could connect deeper. I could see with more clarity and I could enjoy more, regardless of the circumstances. And what I teach my clients when I teach them to heal from the inside out, part of it comes from my own personal journey. I help people understand the neuroscience behind their tendencies so they can look at themselves with more compassion. And then I guide them to create a life that aligns with who they want to be. But for us to do so, we must take a step back and slow down and take intentional and committed actions. And those require mindfulness. We must be
Mhm.
aware of our internal processes, not attaching to them or ignoring them. In a way, we must be proactive in the process of being passive. So, in other words, consciously being with ourselves without letting our thoughts or emotions dictate our behaviors. We can rather observe them and show up in an aligned way. And this way of living includes mindfulness, as I said, and also bodyfulness, which is a practice that I'm sure we can dive deeper into that later. But it's feeling the space within ourselves and between us and the rest of the world. And that's why I mentioned that I didn't have the capacity to receive the information when I was studying so many different modalities of healing and neuroscience and psychology. But in this space, it's where magic happens. It's where we can create resonance, where we feel connected to one another without enmeshing with the other.
Mm. Oh,
So
I love
a
this.
lot. So I don't know if you want me to keep going, but
Oh my gosh, I love this because I anybody who knows me, I'm one of the biggest proponents of mindfulness. Bodyfulness is a new term to me, but I also think the mind and the body are one. We're not separate from mind and body, though we do receive a lot of signals from the body up and from the mind down. And I am really fascinated that you use mindfulness to help you heal. And I want you to just, if you can, try to explain it. You might not even be able to, but how does being mindful put you in a better state for healing?
there is a new level of connection when you live mindfulness ritually, and there is freedom in the connection. This is related to the non attachment, one of the principles of mindfulness. The same way we don't identify with our own thoughts, we are not responsible for others people's emotions or behaviors. And when we cultivate mindfulness and bodyfulness, we take responsibility for our energetic frequency, for our own thoughts, behaviors, where we invest our energy in, what we pay attention to. We are attentive to the electromagnetic field that around us, and to
Mm-hmm.
what we attract. As we vibrate, we attract. So maybe to clarify what I'm saying, we can connect to our truth from a more clear and raw space and access deeper levels of consciousness and connect with others from this more pure space. And this is at the core of the healing journey, to be truthful, to be honest, to accept ourselves fully, so we can make choices that are in alignment with who we want to be, how we want to show up as. I don't know if
Yes.
there's more or less.
I think it does. And I think that when we raise our energetic frequency and we're not living in the kind of mire or the muck of lower energy frequencies, that actually opens up more healing pathways in our body. We're not constricting our energy. And I know that that sounds real woo woo to some people out there, but there are copious amounts of evidence of people healing themselves just by raising their energetic frequency. Like there's a story of a man who had a terminal cancer diagnosis, and what he did was he put himself in a room, and all he did for weeks on end was watch comedy movies. That's all he did.
Mhm.
And his cancer went into remission, which is unexplainable. And a lot of people are like, they may poo-poo that. But I just had somebody on my podcast yesterday who had such a traumatic brain injury that they expected him to be a vegetable after his injury. And he said that he never let anything but positive thoughts go into his mind after that occurrence. And that occurrence was atrocious and so traumatic. And so I think that there is so much power in our mindset. And that's why I wanted you to be on today. And I really want to have you illuminate to our audience a little bit more about neuroplasticity. How can you explain how neuroplasticity can empower individuals to change their mental patterns and their behavior? So this is what we're talking about. You could have gone into a negative state with this injury, but you didn't. You chose to be mindful, which opens you up to this open-hearted, non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. And that facilitated a stress-free environment that led to your healing. So give us a picture of neuroplasticity for anybody who doesn't really fully understand what that means.
Okay, so neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. And understanding neuroplasticity, as you said, empowers individuals to rewire their brains for greater resilience, emotional balance, and personal transformation. And before explaining in what ways we can harness neuroplasticity for positive change, I want that we all understand the wisdom of our bodies, which you already kind of were talking about. Our physical body is the home within which our brain resides. And as such, it provides an anchor to who we are and how we move about in the world. And the body is connected to the brain via nerve fibers, which allow efficient integration of sensation, emotion, cognition, and action. And elementally, an organism receives sensory input, contextualizes it with emotional and cognitive information, and effects an appropriate response. That would be for neuroplasticity and body wisdom, two concepts that important to understand for us to use it to create positive impact or to create health. We come to this world with a somatic map that is developed way before birth. If the mother is stressed, we know that maternal anxiety, can shorten the length of baby's telomeres, which are protective caps on chromosomes and are involved in cancer development, for example. Or we know that when a mother's elevated cortisol, which is the stress hormone, can lead to neurodevelopmental disorders in the child. So this is transgenerational, meaning it passes from one generation to the next. And this map that we carry within our bodies contains the cues that we use even before our cognition develops to function in our environment. Then after birth, we also receive information about who we need to be during the first years of our lives to be safe and loved. So prior to our birth and during the first years of our lives, our bodies contain instructions, so to speak, on how to move through life. Now, what happens is that when we leave paying attention to our map, we are somewhat disconnected from the present. And I'm going to come back to your question, but there is encoded information that served us in the past. But for us to fully connect to reality and create our life, we must understand that the map that was offered, that offered a sense of safety, doesn't serve us anymore. Mm-hmm. And when we understand that our brains and bodies have stories that kept us safe, and we choose to see them just as stories, then we can choose how we want to live our lives in the now. We access freedom when we choose to be with the territory instead of holding on to the conditioning or the map that is not serving us. And from this moment, we not only do we create freedom, we're taking responsibility for our healing. And I don't know how deep you want that I go.
Go deep. Let's do it.
That's great. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about learning that one thing is our programming and one thing is who we want to be. And there's is where we can get to choose who we want to be. That is where healing happens in the present. And how we approach healing is the same as you would. I'm gonna do a metaphor. If your child is crying and you are in a grounded space, showing love to that child would be to approach the child with curiosity, to understand what they need, rather than trying to keep them quiet. So if we are stressed, if our bodies and brains are wired in a way that are in hyper alert, when we have pain or when we have thoughts or emotions that are uncomfortable, we want to get rid of them because we don't have a space. We don't have capacity to deal with them. Whereas if we approach our own thoughts, our own emotions, our own sensations with love, with curiosity, the same way that we would approach a child that is crying, this is when we, with compassion, we can embrace the child. We can see our thoughts, our stories as they are, just stories that, we carry from our past. And we can choose to make space for them and choose how we want to respond to them. And all of this is mindfulness, but it includes neuroplasticity and how to access personal freedom, how to take responsibility for how we want to show up. So everything is interconnected. But at the core, pausing, creating a state of calm within ourselves, listening to our bodies, it's all part of what fosters neuroplasticity. And we know that mindfulness and meditation, for example, strengthen neural pathways related to present moment awareness, reducing overactivity in the amygdala, for example, and they also increase prefrontal cortex functions, improving emotional regulation and decision making. So we know that simple practices, as I said, mindfulness, are also gratitude, practicing gratitude, self-compassion, or positive affirmations, as you were saying.
Learning something new.
All of these strengthen neural circuits related to inner strength. And over time, this rewiring helps the brain default to a healthier to healthier emotional states rather than stress or fear. Additionally, integrating suppressed emotions rewires the brain
Yes.
for emotional safety, self-acceptance, and practices like guided visualizations or emotional release techniques create new neural pathways for self-love and empowerment. And
Yes.
yeah,
I love that. And just to make it as simple as possible for people, neuroplasticity is essentially a rewiring of the brain. And old science used to purport that once we reached a certain age, there was no way to change the brain. And all new research is showing that that's not true. And you can see this just on a visceral level. Say you have an accident and you break your foot. You could have created neural pathways that I only feel pain, I am traumatized, I am never going to recover. That would be one way to rewire your brain. And you can also, on the flip side, rewire your brain to I am absolutely 100% going to heal. I am actually going to be stronger after I recover from this injury. So a lot of people, may argue that our mind does not determine our outcome or what happens within our bodies. And I think it is absolute falsehood. Our minds are incredibly powerful, and what we think, we create. And I think really fully understanding that in the audience out there is so vital because that's empowering. That actually shows that you have the strength within you just through the power of thought to change an outcome. And that is absolutely the most powerful idea that you can adopt and incorporate in your life, in my opinion. So I am so glad we're like twin spirits, so excited. So tell me, before the end of this half of this episode, we only have a little bit of time left, but give me the concept of intimacy within that you introduce in your book, Raw and Unmasked. What is that concept? Explain that to us, and then we'll probably have to continue the conversation in the next house.
it has to do with the thing that I am most fascinated by and committed to, which is true love. I believe this force is within all of us, and throughout life, we learn to block it. Our wounds become so deep that we disconnect from source, and then the more we operate from our wounds, the more we abandon our true selves, which translates into more layers of pain. And to be intimate with something is to share truth. It is to be exquisitely connected, to be devoted, to protect our truth. And romantic partnerships, for example, intimacy is co-created when we share ourselves fully with one another, when we let love in, when we are open, honest, vulnerable. And so my work revolves around becoming intimate with self. When you realize that you are the source of your own pleasure, you just want to share your truth, not to abandon it. It's so pleasurable to be yourself that you genuinely want to share yourself with others. And this, as I said earlier, when you love your own pain, you can also love another person's pain. And this is how we create conscious relationships and heal through them. When we commit to becoming available to ourselves, we can meet another from this raw and magnificent unconditional love. So cultivating intimacy within means to treat everything that we are with sacredness. Yeah, it's the same way we build intimacy with another by being non-judgmental, not projecting, and rather listening and creating a safe space for our lover's full expression. We can do so for ourselves. And this also entails setting boundaries. We don't want our romantic partners to be verbally abusive or to disrespect us. So developing intimacy within involves setting boundaries for ourselves, both cognitive, like no negative self-talk, or you were mentioning, and also somatic boundaries. For example, to be in environments that are conducive to our growth. And for this process, we must develop both mindful awareness and bodyfulness. By learning how our bodies respond to other people's energies, we can choose more intentionally who we share our energy with.
I love this.
Yeah.
Coloma, we're going to have to stop for this half, and I really want to get back into this. And I just want to say, before we end this half of this episode, oh my gosh, in these times, in this political climate that we're living in, if we could all just recognize that we're interconnected and that we should not only respect ourselves, but we should respect others and care for others, it would be a very different environment that we're living in right now. So you guys, oh my gosh, you got to come back for the second half. Coloma's amazing. And I really feel deeply connected to her, even though this is the first time we're meeting. Her message is absolutely necessary in this time. And her pathway to healing can also be your pathway to healing. So please tune in next time for the second half of this amazing episode with author, psychotherapist, researcher, and women's empowerment coach, Coloma Muro. Coloma, thank you so much.
Thank you, Supatra.
Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Insight Podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.